Hi folks, this is part 6 of our final exam review. The next one I want to talk to you about is a problem that I'm going to ask you about is on page 546. Alright, page 546. And if you look at page 546, I'm kind of walking you through this. What I'm looking for on page 546 is a way that you can demonstrate to understand how to declare an array and initialize a certain array to be, it's a two-dimensional array. So if you look at the two-dimensional array of the enumeration type, so in this case, here's what I'm looking for. If you look at the stock, okay, in stock, data type is int, in stock, bottom of page 546, the number of rows and the number of columns. Alright, so I would ask you, this is what I need for you to do, is if I ask you how would you initialize a certain number of arrays that has, how would you initialize something that is, for example, 6 columns with 5 rows. Okay, so rows, I'm sorry, let me repeat that, 6 rows, 5 column. I mistakenly told you that. So what you need to do is to remember that your first parameter that you do in anything in here is, for example, I'm going to call this thing as alpha, is the array, or beta, however you want to call it, give this a name with it. And you can actually go in and you can give 6 is the number of rows, with it, and the second parameter is your column. So if I say 6 rows and 5 column, that's what the size of this array is going to look like with it. So make sure you understand how that actually works and how do you declare and how would you initialize something with it, something like this. So once you come in and you look at in this case, I can actually say, well, in this case I made it kind of, 6 rows and column is 5 columns with it. And in here I can actually set a certain array with this whole thing that I have done. If you look at this array, again, this is the number of rows and this is the number of columns. Inside of this thing, if you look at inside of this column, you need to actually give this a particular number. Remember now, this is what? This right here is your columns, right? So you need to tell me the number of columns there are. So I'm going to make up some numbers here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, right? So how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I put another one of these sets in here because how many of these columns, how many of these rows do I need to have? I need to have 4 rows, right? So this is the first row. I'm just going to copy. I want to bump it over so we can differentiate between this. So something like this. So what is this saying? This is row is 6 row and 5 column. So here are each one of these things. If you can envision the top down, this is that. This sits on top of this. This sits on top of this. So let me call this number something a little different here. Call it 3. Call this thing 5. Call this thing 6, for example. So this is in one column with it. If you can envision how this alpha works with this whole thing. The key thing is for you to understand is how you declare a particular array of 4, array of 6 by 5. Okay, 6 by 5 with the same. So this is, again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, 5 columns, and with a size of 6 in there. So in this case that I have 4. I have 6 of these things. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So I actually need. So okay. So let me clarify something. I don't want to confuse you guys with this thing. This is row is 6 and the column is 5, correct? So if I did something like this, how many of these things would I need? I need to have 6 of these row. You agree? So I need to actually do some more of these. So how many do I have here? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This right here tells me the number of columns in this thing. So what I've defined is a number of rows and columns. There's 6 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so understanding how to define a certain array, that's very important. Now, just off of that page, I've asked one question off of that page. The next one is page is 548. Dash 450. Okay, so I grabbed 2 questions off of this page right here, making sure that you understand how to calculate the arrays and how you process the arrays with this thing. So I'm going to give you an array with 2-dimensional arrays with this thing, and I want you to actually be able to understand how you process. Now make sure you see, do you see where it says print? Look, 4, and there's also a for loop. I'm looking on page 550, and underneath the print input sum of row. So if you look at 4, there is for the print. Anytime when you have a 2-dimensional array, you got to always have what's called a nested loop to process the outer for loop. The outer for loop, whatever that may be. In this case, I'm just going to put in here, your parameters in here, and then you have this is considered your outer for loop, and inside of this thing, you have your inner for loop. Okay, so of course you still have your initialization test and your update, right? But inside of this thing, I want you to make sure you understand that this is the one that processed the column. All right, so this is the one that processed the column with this thing. This outside processed the row. Okay, let's keep that straight. Don't lose sight of that. So if you look at the top of page 550, it talks to you about how do you find the sum of a particular row or particular element for this thing. So if you look at the way how they sum it up, okay, look at the sum by row. The following loop finds the sum of the row number 4 in the matrix. That is, I'm reading the bottom third, that is, it adds the component of the row number 4. So you see how this adds in the component row number 4 is it assigns it, reads it through, and then it captures the number of rows by assigning if you set row equal to 4, and you're going to limit that as the row with it. But the key thing inside of this thing is what you're going to see is the matrix that you have that you have to calculate is the row and the column to the same. Okay, so make sure you understand what I want you to get up from this is I want to give you a 2-dimensional array. I'm going to ask you how to process it. I'm going to ask you what could be the output from that. Okay, so something very comparable, like the one that you were looking at. Look at page 548, 549, 550. A similar problem like that. What is the output for this thing? Okay, remember your trace table? Yes. Please review your trace table with this thing. I need to stop right here.